Welcome May East, so we decide to do a fourth vidéo, une quatrième vidéo, extra vidéo. The most important video, it is about those 17 goals from the United Nations for Save the Planet, let's say on a very basic way, or for Save Mankind. So, can you explain us how those goals was put together? It is historical because it's the first time that mankind, all the nations, work on intention for the planet.
Well, I would say that the roots of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals go way back into the Brundtland Commission, way back when it was for the first time in the history of humanity, was defined what is a sustainable development, which is a development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the needs of the future generations. So that's when it was defined, and we had...
It was how many years ago? 20 years ago?
It was in 87, so we have 1992, the first meeting where United Nations convened a meeting in Rio to analyze and investigate and question for the first time the relationship between the human presence and the planet, and generated this incredible Agenda 21, a very technical document. And from the Agenda 21, 10 years later, we met in Johannesburg Summit, and there was a Johannesburg Declaration. That's when there was this insight that we need an education for sustainable development, and UNESCO and the whole UN system created a decade for education for sustainable development.
You speak about all this very well. Have you been involved in all this?
I've been in all of those.
Ah, fantastic.
1992.
Do you have any book, or you should write a book about your journey?
Yes.
Because that is a very, very important part of the mankind story.
It is
the most important, perhaps, ever.
It's true. In 1992, I was an artivist. I was a pop singer in Brazil. But I used my work into engaging with the social aspects of life. And I organized during the Rio Summit the contribution of the artists of the world to this big investigation of our relationship between humanity and the planet. So since then, and then Johannesburg, I was there, and then 20 years later, we were back in Rio. And I would say that change hasn't accelerated. The situation that we met in 1992 were aggravated in 2012. And at that stage, there was a successful set of UN goals, which was launched by Kofi Annan in the year 2000, the Millennium Development Goals, which was a set of goals discussed internally by technical and experts, but adopted by all nations, but was an agenda for the North to sponsor the South to implement.
Yes, I remember this.
And the SDGs became, it was an idea.
The SDGs?
The Sustainable Development Goals, which emerged. The process was defined in Rio plus 20 years. The process, it was not agreed there. They say, well, the Millennium Development Goals were so successful because they went straight to the point, they had a commitment, and we have, moved so many of the social crises into a better space. Why don't we use the same type of thinking for sustainable development? And there was this realization that we cannot develop now and clean later. Member states realize we cannot just have development. We have to develop already adopting a more integrated perspective, because we don't have the time to clean later. You know, it's not only creating jobs, but it's creating jobs that don't pollute, that pay fairly, the employees. I mean, it was a completely different conversation. So we then started a very deep and long conversation and consultation, a global consultation of various organizations, civil society, together with the discussions of the international civil servants and the diplomats. And we have adopted in 2015, September, unanimously, all member states of the UN adopted this framework for development.
Very, very interesting. Because actually, exactly as you said, in a community who bring intention, right now, those 17 goals are intention. Of course, they are not still implemented, but the only fact that mankind, all the United Nations decide and agree after 20 years on those 70 goals is the first very, very important step. It is the first time mankind together clarify exactly what they want as development for this planet, and it is connected with, of course, with Anthropocene. So perhaps now, how you see the education of all the people involved? I mean, the 7 billion of person in the planet, or all the mankind, 7 billion, perhaps 9 billion soon. How you see the possibility to involve them and to educate them to this 17 goal, and bring the possibility to actually activate and really make it happen?
I'll tell you that this needs a whole revolution in education, in a sense, but also revolution within the system. So ESD, Education for Sustainable Development, needs to be embedded in all sectors, you know, primary, secondary, university level, continuing education, community level. And UNESCO, who held the decade, then the decade ended, 2015, the decade ended, and they created a renewed initiative called GAP, Global Action Program, for Education for Sustainable Development. They invited key educational institutions to help to continue pressuring and advancing the agenda of this sort of education. And Gaia Education is part of this think tank, and we work on the 5 main umbrella topics, and we are accelerating sustainable solutions at local level. We're working with municipalities and cities like Mexico and Nagoya and some cities, together with communities. And I think this is such a complex piece of work that we need different institutions working in different levels to start embedding more and more the whole system's perspective, the social, ecological, economic implications in each one of those goals.
What are the most advanced universities in the world in this field? Because it is interesting for us as a university.
Well, I cannot say which one. I mean, we are part of the SDG Academy that was created by Jeffrey Sachs. So there are many universities.
SDG, can you say it again?
Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you.
Academy, which is a convergence of many universities that are doing their job.
How many?
I think there is over 1,000 institutions under the Sustainable Development Goals Academy. But I'll tell you an interesting example. I just came back from Estonia. And Estonia, which is a small country, it's doing a very interesting work. They're embedding education for sustainable development at kindergarten level, primary, in the national curriculum, and then also at civil society level with the Gaia Academy. They have the Gaia Schools, Gaia Academy, and we signed a memorandum of understanding with university that has launched a bachelor course, 4 years, into natural sciences and sustainable living. So I think it's not a question what is the main university, but which is the place where you can, if you're born today, in your kindergarten, you start having a different type of education that you get into the primary, secondary, and when you enter into university, you'll be able to study something, and then you're going to be graduating and you're going to be a professional in ecosystems regeneration. So it's the whole journey, I think it's important. So countries or regions thinking about all levels of education.
Thank you very much, May. As a conclusion, I would say that innovation ecosystem have to be a circular one, a regeneration ecosystem, if we want survive on this planet, basically.
I agree with you.
Thank you very much. That is the conclusion of all we have said, actually, and a very important conclusion.
Thank you.